A wonderfully warm welcome to everyone. My name is Idro, and today I'm going to talk about my Tulpas. As I've mentioned in the previous video, I am a Tulpamancer. I have 3 Tulpas, and I want to share with everyone a little bit about each of them today. To start out with, I'm going to define what a Tulpa is, and more importantly, what it isn't. A Tulpa is a fully sentient and autonomous being that lives in the mind of its host, and is typically created intentionally by the host mind. A Tulpa is not an entity possessing the host mind, as its origins are from within, not from without. A Tulpa isn't an imaginary friend. They are fully sentient and autonomous beings with their own thoughts and feelings and identities and personalities, and can disagree with their hosts on a great many things. Finally, a Tulpa is not an alter. Alters are created with extreme and repeated trauma before the age of 9, prevents a child's mind from developing properly. Alters can switch in and out of control of the host's body, seemingly at random, whereas a Tulpa really cannot do this. If it's even capable of controlling the body at all, it can't unless the host wants it to. And that's just one of the many ways that alters are different from Tulpas. Now, with that all out of the way, we can get into my Tulpas. I've organized this part of the video so that my more active Tulpas and the ones that I find easier to reach when I try to talk to them are discussed first. The first Tulpa that I want to talk about is named Trevor. He's probably one of the newer Tulpas of mine. He's a snake. We don't really remember exactly what kind, but we do suspect that he was from Australia or someplace similar looking to that based on a memory that we've had. That's a thing that I'll get back to in a moment. Trevor is very practically minded. He is probably the most mentally mature out of all of us, I would say, including myself, of course. And he is very kind-hearted. Next, I want to talk about Filkia, or Filk for short. He's a dragon just as I am, and he's similar to me in a lot of ways. He's fairly protective and a bit of a hothead, though he has cooled down some since his creation about a year or so ago. He's probably the most like me out of all 3 of them, which makes sense all things considered, especially since he was my first Tulpa. He isn't the most immature of the 4 of us, I would say, but he does, on the rare occasion, act like a little hatchling about things. But he's gotten a lot better about that and is continuing to do so. Being a fire-breathing, flying lizard the size of a house, Filkia likes fire, unsurprisingly. But he has a good heart underneath all the scales and flames. And on top of that, he's probably had the greatest influence on me out of all 3 of my Tulpas. Lastly, I want to talk about James. He's a human and is mentally the youngest of my Tulpas, being only, by my estimate, about 5 years old. He is a shy little one and gets sad or scared pretty easily, and because of this, a lot of my interactions with him, which are the least common out of the 3, consist at some point of me comforting him. He is, however, one of the sweetest kids you'd ever meet. Calling back to my earlier point about Trevor, all of my Tulpas were at some point one of my past lives. I created them kind of by accident, by talking to myself, which progressed slowly into talking to them as they each developed. Their individual personalities came from my past lives, though James is the only one who we are confident was actually named what he is. Filk was, as previously stated, the first to develop, and James started to develop around the same time, though he didn't have a name yet. Trevor was the latest to develop, probably starting to do so around 6-ish months after the other 2 had. Trevor is currently the most active one, though, but Filk and James sometimes speak as well. None of my Tulpas can actually take over my body, even if I wanted them to. Trust me, I've tried, and they have as well. It just doesn't work. But that just about wraps up all that I wanted to talk about today. Thank you all for tuning in. Happy hunting, fly safe, and may the wind ever be behind you.